Hey, White Sox fans. My name is Brett Ballantini, and somehow I host a podcast about the White Sox minor league system. This one is the Southside Sox Down on the Farm podcast number 20, and it is dedicated fully to the Birmingham Barons. One team this year we can feel pretty good about. By the end, even they left a bit of a bitter taste in the mouth, but with me is Darren Black, who covers the minors very extensively for us, does all the weekly updates, monthly updates, tons of nightly updates. The man, he's simply crazy. Look, he's wearing an old Canapolis hat. That's how crazy he is. But he's with me here to talk through Birmingham, a team that finished 62 and 56. As Darren always points out, winning the division, as if that meant anything this year, because it did not. They were the third of 8 teams in their South division, I believe, of AA. Plus 53 run differential. Not great, which tells you this, not particularly great, which tells you this team knew how to scrape together wins. And what I liked seeing from Justin Jershell is how aggressive he is as a manager, especially on the base paths. For better or worse, he seems to be, manager just goes after it. The Birmingham Barons were in position to clinch a playoff position. I think all they needed was one win against the Montgomery Biscuits in the last 6-game series. The Mother Nature did not do them any favors. However, they did not do themselves any favors because they did not win at all during the series. And that is usually not going to get you in the playoffs. And in this case, it did not get them in the playoffs. Darren, I will ask again, just so we can compare notes. And I know this one's not going to sync up. Do you agree with the Southside Sox readers and voters for the MVP of the Birmingham Barons? Who is your MVP for the Birmingham Barons for 2021?
Well, it should be Romy Gonzalez, is it not?
It is not based on the votes. Our friend, staunch conservative Jameson Fisher is the voting, and in part that's because he never moved from Birmingham. That helps, right? You get to play like 100, however many games. He probably played 100 games for the Barons this year. Anyway, Jameson Fisher, your readership, Barons MVP. Darren's angry. Darren is going to give somebody a talking to, reading and listening and watching this. All right, Jameson Fisher aside, because we don't care. He can do the splits at first base. Don't particularly care for his tweets. And he's an organizational guy, whatever. There were, as you acknowledged, some very exciting and talented players coming through Birmingham. Cade McClure had, he sort of made his bacon with Birmingham, not really with Charlotte. And he used his great Birmingham experience combined with the retirement and trades of other pitchers to become the Southside Sox pitcher of the year for 2021. But, there are some other names. Of course, you mentioned Romy Gonzalez. Carlos Perez had seemingly a very strong year catching there, made it to Charlotte at the end of the season. And apparently, who knows, he might be the great hope for catching in the organization now. I don't know. We can talk a little bit about Carlos, but I guess let's address Romy Gonzalez first, because you're not going to see many stories like that in any organization.
Yeah, no, if not for Jake Berger's breakout, not playing since 2017, the most surprising player definitely would have been Romy Gonzalez. He went from AA to the majors on a team that won the division, that didn't really need him around. He forced the issue to get up there. He finished AA with a 136 WRC plus, so 36% better than the average AA guy. He hit 20 homers with the Birmingham Barons, which is basically unheard of. And he also stole 20 bases too. So he's just kind of doing it all and also playing everywhere. Kind of becoming a Leury Garcia of the minor league system. And maybe he's the Leury Garcia of the White Sox next year, because he definitely kind of proved that he maybe should be up there with the power that he showed, and maybe not breathtaking speed, but at least the base running aptitude to get 20 stolen bases in a league like that. There's nothing to say about good things about his year. The power was obviously awesome. He walked a lot more than he normally did. He still strikes out a decent amount, but that's kind of just really every player about this time, except for a few. And I guess we can touch on Yolbert Sánchez later, who's one of the few players who doesn't really strike out a lot. But he was definitely the surprise and my MVP of the Birmingham.
There you go. The true MVP. Come on, go to the expert. Well, let's shift right to Yolbert Sanchez because he's a guy who also played in multiple levels this year, surprised with the bat, and a guy who now has fashioned himself as perhaps the next of this crop of hitters, period, and certainly infielders to perhaps approach the major leagues as soon as 2022. Tell us about his season.
Yep. So started in Winston-Salem. He is older, so I was fairly surprised that he was starting there. He's 24. He also got a big bonus, but he was also in that situation of not really playing a ton, like prior to being signed, just because he was immigrating, which takes some time.
Yeah.
And takes some time away from baseball. So we kind of started out lower. He actually didn't do like particularly amazing there. He just kind of kept doing his thing of always getting contact, not really walking a ton, not striking out a ton, but he was just getting contact. And then when he came up to AA, he added a bit more power, but the BABIP went up. And it's not just because he was getting lucky. He was pulling the ball a bit more, centering the ball up a bit more. So he was just getting harder contact in general. And you can also go look at his extra base numbers and see they also went up compared to his low A numbers. But yeah, he just it was kind of concerning to see him not kind of take single A by storm, but he kind of got promoted just because of his age. And then he actually did awesome enough that he's now in the Arizona Fall League and actually deserving to be in the Arizona Fall League instead of just kind of, hey, let's see if you're still good, kind of a vibe that they do with some people sometimes.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I was going to say the fact that he almost was forced to be promoted. Like you said, you're surprised he even started where he did. That tells you, oh, geez, the shine is off this guy. And then he takes that almost a promotion as like a wake up call and really hits the afterburners. You can't help but walk away and be pretty impressed with this guy based on what he did after the promotion, which he like sort of didn't deserve.
Yeah. And if you're getting promoted and doing better, even if you're doing awesome, like Romy Gonzalez was in AA, and he got promoted to AAA and was even better. So he got promoted again. And that's kind of just how that goes. If you keep proving that the level that you're at, you shouldn't be the level that you're at, you're going to keep moving up. I'm not sure if Yolbert Sanchez is going to start in AA or AAA next year, but he's definitely someone that should be considered a guy that will be on the south side eventually, whether it's just because out of necessity, like a lot of the outfielders were this season, or if he forces the issue because they don't have a second baseman right now, quite frankly. So.
No, they do not. No, they do not. But that's a different podcast, Darren. And you're going to be welcome to join that one as well, because I think that's going to be a different podcasts over the course of the next few weeks and months. Okay. The other guy who really stood out to me, and I think I referred to him, and I'm curious to know your thoughts about him because he's just sort of hung around and been productive this year. And got sort of the courtesy promotion to Charlotte at the end. That's Carlos Perez. He's a guy who was sort of the fourth catcher. And I want to say he's been that maybe for a couple of years in spring training. I guess you can't really count 2020, so strange, but he sort of had that, I don't know, like courtesy, just extra guy thing, but still it's somebody that they're going to give it to just a guy off the street. And he seemed to really step things up, if not step things up, just continue to play at a pretty good level at AA. Every reason to believe that at Charlotte, he might be able to duplicate that next year. Tell me about Perez and does he have any sort of ceiling that can get him to the White Sox?
Yeah. So in terms of ceiling that can get him to the White Sox, it's just basically that there are two catchers that they thought could back up Yasmani are not as good as.
Yeah, that's a trick question, but
yeah, they're both good at different things and not, whatever. A different podcast. But he kind of bucks the trend of not really striking out often. It's just kind of just above 10% this year, and it's usually pretty low. So it's not like this year was some kind of weird year where he wasn't striking out a ton. He also doesn't walk a lot. So definitely much different than Sebi Zavala and Zach Collins in terms of plate approach, much more contact oriented. The power, it's fine for a catcher, at least it wasn't AA. Historically, it hasn't been that great. But I mean, just seeing him improve offensively for the kind of the first time in a long time, especially at AA, is really a good thing to see. He was basically just an average hitter there. So you could kind of keep that in the back of your mind when thinking about, his future prospects as a Major League Baseball player, that he was basically an average hitter at AA. But I've generally heard like fine things about his defense. It's not like people have been historically complaining about Zach Collins' defense ever since he was drafted. That's not the case with Carlos Perez, at least. And he's stuck around at rookie balls for a long time and has kind of shot up the system lately. But again, the White Sox system with catchers is very not great.
Yeah, there's that different podcast we're talking about. Hey, Darren, I counted up about 34 guys, 31 of whom are still on the team, who sort of made a cut as like standouts in the system this year. And that's based on our MVP votes, which I know is not science. Okay, fine. Jameson Fisher proves that, but Jameson Fisher still would at least warrant like, okay, he had a standout season. He did well this season.
Good year.
But two guys that sort of ended up not really standing out with any one squad sort of fall, or they ended up in Birmingham. And I just want to touch on them quickly. And that's a Jager Rusconi, who had a ridiculous climb like Roman Gonzalez, given the fact that Rusconi started in Arizona. I think he made it all the way up to AA. I don't know. I don't know what his story is. And our favorite guy who can't seem to catch or throw the ball, Gunnar Troutwine, who at least seems to know how to take a walk and hit the heck out of the ball. So I don't know, maybe he's just a DH, with a bullet. I don't know. But those are two guys I want to touch on, and you can dismiss them quickly if you want. And then I do also need to talk about whether there's really any pitching of note. Certainly starting, I'm not sure there is. I guess in the bullpen there is. So let's try to sweep up the rest of the cutting room floor and see who else there is to discuss on the Birmingham Barons.
Yeah. So the two guys you mentioned, Rusconi is basically like a second base outfielder type guy. I would categorize him just mainly as an org guy. I'm not sure he has much of a future. He did do well this year, but it looked like it was really BABIP based. Like not just Yolbert Sánchez, like pulling the ball more, like a 360 BABIP. It was over 400 for his time, kind of really all over the place. But it was mostly he was taking over spots for injured guys whenever he was there, and the Sox do that with catchers most often. Gunnar Troutwine, he's interesting in the fact that he could be kind of I'm not sure if he's ever going to move to first base or what, but I think the general consensus is that he's not really a catcher, but he has a decent bat. And we'll just kind of have to see where that eventually goes. The Sox have always had a lot of those guys, and most of the time they don't really work out. They have two of those guys at AAA MLB with Yermin Mercedes and Zach Collins right now. But Gunnar Troutwine, I would say, is definitely a guy to just kind of keep in the back of your mind, because if his bat keeps on improving like it has been, that could be pretty big eventually, because he also has fine pop, not a lot, but decent. Also got to talk about Mike Rodolfo. He was mostly in AA, also went up to AAA. This was the biggest power surge he's ever had. He just might not be on the team next year in any capacity, whether in the farm system or majors. But he hit the crap out of the ball whenever he came near the zone with an ISO at 270 in AA and AAA, and that was very, very, very impressive. On the pitching side, after Connor Pilkington left, yeah, it was Cade McClure, and then Cade McClure left, and then Jason Below,
Right.
He got a very early promotion, an actual well-deserved promotion. But he just came up and just was not good as a starting pitcher in AA whatsoever. As I've written in here, it might even gotten to the point where he just has to go to the bullpen, which I've thought that he might eventually. He just did so well at Winston-Salem starting that I was just hoping that hopefully he could turn it around. But he just, he got hit a ton. Batting average against was 276, and that's a very good batting average for a hitter. and they're supposed to be a bit better when you're a pitcher, when the main goal is to get out.
Yeah.
And he just he wasn't getting the amount of outs that you need.
Are there any guys that we didn't mention, or maybe that we did mention, who are you most surprised by with Birmingham this year?
I guess I could cheat and say Jose Rodriguez because of the last week of the season.
But that would be cheating.
I'll save him for later. I honestly, the way that Yolki Cespedes kind of finished the year there, still being an above average hitter, even though it was mostly based off of his first 2-3 weeks there. Just all that he went through from 2019 to getting to 2021 and just having a good season overall. And now he's in the Arizona Fall League, though that is mostly to get him more at bats. He didn't finish AA particularly well, but still finished it slightly above average, showed good pop, was stealing a lot of bases. So he just kind of affirmed the bonus that the Sox gave him and affirmed the hype that he deserves. And we'll have to see if he keeps the ground running next year. Because I mean, he hasn't played a ton. So there's a lot for him to just kind of fine tune in his next few years.
Yeah, when we don't know a guy, it's easy. Some fans are going to get caught up in the hype and say, "Oh, yeah, he's going to be in the majors in 2022." And there's some folks who are like, "Well, until I see him, do X, Y, Z, I'm not even going to consider him in my top prospects." And it's nice to know that he, you don't have to be Luis Robert to still pretty much meet the hype. And I think it's safe to say that Cespedes has done that. And again, that doesn't necessarily put him in the opening day lineup next year, but it gets him, basically right where you want him to be. And probably even on the aggressive side, no injury issues, probably as good as you could have hoped. And that's great. We need more as good as we could have hoped guys. Cause there's you can definitely count them on just one hand, and other organizations have entire rosters full of them. So, we're not going to be too choosy with the White Sox because it was a rough year. All right. Well, that was the one good team that we just talked about. It's funny, the tone doesn't necessarily change from good to bad team, but that was it. Birmingham Barons, thanks to the head honcho there, Jonathan Nelson, who is a friend of the site. Certainly, Jake Mastriani helps us out with some stuff, did some features, he did the feature that basically set Romy Gonzalez on his way, because we published that and a day later he was promoted, and by the end of the year he's with the White Sox. So nice touch, Jake, well done there. Let's go get him next year. How about all the rest of the teams act like Birmingham next year? That'd be nice. We could talk about more winning baseball. Then you can tell me, Brett, you idiot, stop talking about the White Sox having a winning minor league organization. It doesn't matter. Who cares? But I'd still welcome that discussion. Okay, Darren, that is Southside Sox on the Farm, Birmingham Barons review. It's podcast 20. I have a feeling another one's coming up real soon. So listeners, readers, stay tuned. I think in a couple of days, there's going to be yet another one in this series.